Hello everyone, welcome to StraightA. Dawson here, back with another video here today, and we are continuing our power rankings going into week 4. Sunday night football is tomorrow, or the Sunday football in general is tomorrow, and I'm excited to see some matchups tomorrow. I'm going to go to a nice little bar, I'm going to drink my little beer, and I'm going to, actually watch some games in public with some other people, other than being on Discord with other people or calling other people. I'm just going to enjoy a good day of football. That's the plan. I hope you guys are too. But first, we have some power rankings to go over. I usually try to get these up a little bit sooner, but Saturday still feels pretty good because we only saw one game, and I'm not really going to impact that game. So Giants and Cowboys, I'm not even thinking about when it comes to that game. So I'm getting ready to show y'all my hot takes here today. Again, remember, my power rankings are gradually over time. I don't just make big jumps because, oh my gosh, Minnesota's 3-0. Now, granted, Minnesota's looking damn good, let that be known, but I have to adjust for myself. I gotta make some gradual adjustments rather than jumping to conclusions. Either way, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and comment any suggestions for future videos below. Without further ado, let's get right into the video. So, of course, I adjust this on the fly just because, whatever. You're going to see a little bit of hints or whatever, but we're going to talk about it from 32 to 25. First in the fourth column, if I can ever adjust my thing on OBS. Okay, apparently you just don't want to work today. There you go. There you are. Of course, you see some spoilers already, but there you go. We have 32 through 25. Let's talk about 32. Raiders got beat by the Panthers. Raiders, while I didn't want to put them at 32, I don't necessarily think they are a 32 type tier team. I can't deny they lost to the Panthers, and the Panthers look damn good. And the Patriots, again, don't look as bad as I think the Panthers or Raiders could. So, the Raiders felt like that they have to go in the 32 slot. Now, I think that with all these teams, from the, Giants down tier are playing well gradually, I think that there's not, a clearly bad team anymore now that we have seen the Panthers actually stay alive. Giants have shown a lot of great potential. The Titans have, even on defense, been a great team. Patriots, same case there. They've competed against great teams. Even the Raiders have beaten the Ravens. So, it's really, really difficult to even rank the bottom tier teams because those are a clear bottom 5 in my mind, with a very honorable mention at the Jacksonville Jaguars. I am holding out hope. Again, they have dropped from 18 to 27 in the last 3 weeks, and they are 0-3. They have not competed well at all. But they have the roster. We have seen them do well before. Even last year, we saw lots of glimpses of them doing well. But man, one more loss like that, and they are a bottom 5 team 100%, because the Jags have been struggling to get anything going. Trevor Lawrence hasn't produced one good game. Christian Kirk has been good once. It's just really insane. And when we see potential from the 28 through 32 teams, Jacksonville's going to be really dropping down there soon. Again, I know overreact in terms of, okay, they're 0-3. We've seen the Bengals be 0-3 and move up really gradually. So, take that as you will. I'm keeping Jacksonville at 27. But again, Raiders 32, Panthers beat the Raiders, so I'll put them at 31. Pretty typical for me is if I usually see a team that are pretty close to each other and they just beat the team, I move that team up. Just kind of how I do. I don't do it if they beat them once the season. Obviously, the Ravens and Raiders, I'm not going to move the Raiders all the way up to the Ravens, that type of deal, but it's still a consideration. Patriots, again, they're not looking great. They faced the Jets. It wasn't a very great looking, but again, I think there's still just enough room above them and for the Panthers, who did move up a lot. But again, there's still a little bit of hesitation there because it's one game sample size. So we'll see if the Panthers can keep the momentum going. Titans, again, same thing here. Their offense is in shambles. The run game keeps them alive slightly, but their defense is really what's holding them true. I'll keep it 29 for the foreseeable future. Giants at 28. Giants are a team of the bottom 5 teams that probably would replace the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I don't know how the Cowboys loss is going to impact them, but they didn't compete very poorly against the Cowboys, who are a top 10 team in my mind. So Jacksonville being 28 and moving up 3 spots against the other teams, I think the Giants are a team that could move out of the bottom 5. So I kind of like their outlook for the foreseeable future. I don't think they'll move up, much, but I think they are a team that could definitely be outside the top 5 or bottom 5. Daniel Jones hasn't looked horrible. The run game from Devin Singletary has been good. Malik Neighbors obviously has been a beast. We'll see how the injury impacts him. And the defense has been really, really damn good. So we'll see. Jacksonville, we already talked about. They have looked atrocious this whole season. I don't even really know what to do with them anymore. They're moving down 4 spots for now. I think, again, it's just one of those things where they're a team that is currently going down, but they have been playing worse than the teams below them. But again, I think they have the potential to still stay in the matchups, so I'm going to keep them gradually going down. Chargers are 26. Unfortunately, they just have not been competing well, or they've been competing well, sorry, but it's been through very weird memes. J.K. Dobbins pops off. Then, their defense carries them a little bit. Then it's like then Justin Herbert gets hurt, and all of a sudden they're doing like some weird thing. It's a very weird scheme for the Chargers, who are doing decently well, but there's nothing that's clicking consistently, and so I don't see that being a very sustainable strategy for them. Now, granted, I think their team is better than a lot of other teams, and I think that there is some potential there, but I think the potential is even worse than our 25 spot at the Washington Commanders, who, like the Giants, I'm really liking the look of their team. It's the exact opposite of the Giants in some standpoint. So I think their offense is really, really cooking. It took a little bit of time for them to actually get rolling with Jaden Daniels, but their defense is good enough to keep them in games, I guess, sometimes. Against a really high-powered Bengals offense, it really was tough for them. But the Washington Commanders walked away with a win against a top half team, or at least a close top half team. And Jaden Daniels has looked really, really good, and I think it could gradually even move that team even more and more if he gets Scary Terry involved more. Zach Ertz becomes a good safety pass, and he utilizes Brian Robinson's run game. Washington Commanders actually could be a sneaky good team that actually might make the playoffs this year if you really think about it. Other than that, we'll move on to our top or bottom half. As you see, I'm going to just keep on spoiling things here because I don't really care that much. But boom, bada bing. We got the Vikings through the Falcons here. Falcons at 24. They're just a team that I just haven't been excited about. They had a very good expectations coming into the season. The first two games, or first game was especially bad. The last two games have been fine enough to keep them afloat, but they've been losing. They gradually beat the Chiefs. But again, their team has not looked good. Bijan has been a workhorse, but he hasn't really gotten much in conversions or results. Kirk Cousins has looked like a 3/4 of the Kirk Cousins last year. I think that's pretty much what we've seen him at his peak. His weapons have been fine. Drake London's been fine. Everything about this team has been fine, but they haven't really translated to many results. They almost beat the Chiefs this last week, is what I should say. I think I said they accidentally beat them. But no, they almost beat the Chiefs, but of course a loss is still a loss. And they honestly, when you really break it down, didn't look amazing. I'm not going to say they look bad, but the Chiefs are like one of the most, I don't want to say most fraudulent number one teams, but they are purely there because they get results, not because of their stats. And so as soon as the Chiefs kind of fall away from not winning all the time, I don't know where the Chiefs might land. Now, obviously, the Chiefs are still the Chiefs, so whatever. And obviously, spoiler alert, they're still number one. They still haven't lost. So, and they're the Super Bowl champions, and they haven't done awful on any stat lines. It's just they haven't looked great. The Falcons, again, they have a lot to prove, and if they're going to, whine about calls, yes, I get it. The defensive pass interference with Kyle Pitts, 100% probably should have been called. Don't cry about it. If you're crying about one call that made you lose, move on. It's kind of how it goes. And I get the Chiefs. I'm frustrated with the Chiefs. I'm a Broncos fan, as you know. So I'm frustrated with the Chiefs doing well and getting away with these simple things. But sometimes it's really hard to also root against Chiefs in a lot of regards because they get battered down so much by calls. In terms of fans saying, cherry picking the calls that go in the Chiefs' favor. There's a lot of things that don't go in the Chiefs' favor too. So a little defense against the Chiefs there. Not much. Still fucking hate you. 23, the Bears. Caleb Williams has shown some life. The offense has shown some life. The defense is really carrying them a lot. But we haven't seen a lot of results coming from the Bears team in general. I'm curious whether the momentum will actually pick up, but they just ended up falling down 3 spots just due to some other teams doing really, really well. So again, take that as you will. Broncos is 22. Again, showing some signs of life, being a very good Bucs team. Am I biased? Probably. But also, the Bears and the Falcons really didn't deserve to stay that high. And the Commanders and Chargers and all that, and Jags, all those teams really weren't moving up too much. So the Broncos are in a really weird, area where teams are falling down further than they're falling up. So Broncos kind of just fell into the 22 spot. You could probably put them around 24 spot as well. So I wouldn't be too sad about that. Then 21 and 20, we have two teams that I think are almost better than their ranking will give them, but obviously there's still a lot to prove with these teams, and that's something I really want to focus the power rankings on. Or a lot of these teams haven't fully proven themselves. By mid-season, a lot of these teams we've now seen a great sample size. We now see where these teams have competed against good teams, bad teams, etc., etc. And we just haven't seen that for the Cardinals and Saints. Their rosters coming into the season were fine, but not great. So, that type of deal. They've moved up quite a bit, but obviously with losses this week, it's hard for them to continually move up. Their quarterbacks have done well. Their run games have been really, really solid. Their defenses have been better than expected, and they've beaten some teams that maybe they shouldn't have, or at least competed against teams they really should have. So we'll put them in the top 20 for now because they are definitely a fringe team. We'll have to see how these two teams develop throughout the rest of the season. But Cardinals and Saints, I wouldn't mind betting on them on a given day. Jets, again, they're kind of in a weird spot too. Again, they moved up 5 spots because a lot of teams aren't moving up, they're moving down, and so Jets just kind of fell into the 19 spot with beating the Patriots. It's a visual matchup, tough defense. Aaron Rodgers looks like Aaron Rodgers. Let's be honest here, he has not lost a step now. His first game was maybe a little slower. His second and third game have been really, really good and efficient. He hasn't really got his main offensive weapons focused in, but he's utilizing the entire offense, which is really, really good. Breece Hall, consistent if nothing else. The defense for the Jets, suffocating. So this Jets team could be really, really, really dangerous once they play some more proven teams and see and compete how they do against them. So 19 for the Jets is where I land them. 18 for the Colts, another team that's kind of falling down in my mind. I expected a lot from them coming into the season, but they have just been kind of keeping in the same area. They've shown flashes of good here, flashes of bad here, and their defense is going down, plummeting down. Their offense is plummeting down. At this point, I don't know what to do with the Colts. They are similar to Jags in my mind of I just don't think they're going to be good. Anthony Richardson is a cone, it seems like. I picked up that term from BDGE. Shout out to y'all. But I cannot root for them because the only thing that's doing well on that team is the offensive line and Jonathan Taylor. Give Anthony Richardson some credit. He has a lot of time in the pocket because the fucking O-line's really, really good. Otherwise, they just not produce the results we've hoped to see. 18's the spot of keeping them for now, but they have very big potential to move down further. 17, we have a big mover. The Vikings have went up 5 spots. Of course, they were probably around the 24 spot in previous coming in the season, or even maybe 25, 26 with Kirk Cousins leaving, J.J. McCarthy getting hurt. But man, I apologize, Kevin O'Connell. I did not know. I was not familiar with your game. I'll submit an official apology form. They are 3-0. Their defense has been probably the best defense in the league. 100%. In terms of what has been played, they've probably been the best defense in the league. Sam Darnold has outperformed his expectations like 2 or 3-fold, easily. Justin Jefferson has been able to be that really elite receiver, and Sam Darnold with Kevin O'Connell has looked absolutely insane. I'm sorry I faulted the Vikings game here. I am still hesitant, obviously, because they're still, top 16 teams, as you can probably see of what teams are left, to not be said, are still very, very good teams and proven teams in a lot of regards. So that's why the Vikings haven't broken through to that category yet. But man, the Vikings, if they can compete against a lot of these other teams consistently going forward, even go 4-0, 5-0, it's going to be hard to deny the Vikings a top 14, top 10 spot even in the next foreseeable future. So obviously, again, I have to see a little bit more sample size. Is 3 games just a fluke? You never know. I think that once we get to the 5 or 6 games and it's still consistently going like that, that's when we can see that gradually improving even more, because now we have a sample size that we can work with. Kind of talking about the rest of it, we'll go into boom. At this point, I'm not really caring about what you see and what you don't see. So there you go. I'll just put myself right there, and we'll talk about the 9. I'm just gonna whatever. Fuck it. You can see the top half. You can see the top half for now. Boom. I don't really care. All right, 9 through 16. So 16, the Bengals. Bengals, again, are showing some forms of life, so they're still staying in the top 16, top half for me. But, man, if they're not going to translate this to wins, especially against a Commanders team like that, it's going to be really tough to justify them staying in the conversation because their odds of making the playoffs at this point are not very good. Same with the Browns. The Browns at least have a win, I think, under their belt. Of course, just remember all of this on the top of my head. But the Browns in general has just been carried by their defense, and their defense hasn't looked amazing. Deshaun Watson has been suitable last game, so take that as you will. Mark Cooper had a really big game. They are a team that probably going to stay in the top half if they keep producing the same way they do, because they're just doing fine. They're winning a game occasionally. They're putting up stats. It's hard to place the Browns right now because they're such a weird spot with them not being really consistently good in almost any category. They're just doing fine in almost every category, sometimes getting wins, and wins translate to higher placements, etc., etc. It's just tough. It's tough right now. The AFC North is a tough division in general, but it's a big, head scratcher for me because there's only 2 teams in that AFC North team that are looking, at least really good as potential playoff winners. Dolphins, they're falling down really, really fast. I'm giving Tyler Huntley a chance here for a full game to see how the Dolphins actually shape up. But if they don't produce a win, if they don't produce something to say, okay, maybe the Dolphins still have life. Without Tua, this team is going to fall out of the playoffs before Tua even gets back in the game, because he's expected to be out for probably about 6 more weeks is what I've heard. If they lose 6 games, it's not going to be good. So the Dolphins have to translate to something. The run game has to get back involved a little bit more. They have to do something. It's just not doing well. So keeping them in the 14th spot for now because, again, I like their potential more than the Browns, the Bengals, and I think there's an argument to be made now with the Vikings going up that they could pass the Dolphins. But, again, it's about what we've seen from the team out on the roster for the Dolphins. Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Devon Achane can produce, and that defense for the Dolphins has been killing their ass off to try to keep the Dolphins in games. So if the offense can click with any quarterback other than Tua, their Dolphins are better than the Vikings at the current moment. However, it's looking like it's not going to be the case. So that's why it's kind of a different thing. The Vikings probably beat the Dolphins in my mind in any given week right now. But the Dolphins have more potential to get it clicked back together. And if they get it clicked back together, they are a better team than the Vikings. But again, Dolphins are falling, Vikings are moving up. So keep that in mind as you see the rankings. Seahawks at 13, they're just a consistently good team. Geno has been really, really suitable. DK's been amazing. JSN, Tyler Lockett have been very good secondary pieces. Zach Charbonnet has filled in for Kenneth Walker amazingly. The defense for the Seahawks, again, is not suffocating, but it keeps them in games, in like that middle tier games of, Geno can score about 27 points, maybe not much more than that, in terms of like total points scored. But their defense hasn't let up much more than 20, if anything. So to keep the Seahawks in the conversation, I think they're still going to be a contender throughout the whole season. Bucks, really, really bad, really rough loss to the Broncos for them. They did not look good at all. Run game wasn't there. Godwin was the only one producing some sort of receiving results, and the defense was just getting Swiss cheese by one of the worst offenses in the league. So I moved them down a little bit. Again, seeing 2 games before, they're a playoff team. Their roster's really good. I got to keep them up there, but man, a loss to the Broncos definitely knocks them out of the top 10 temporarily. Rams at 11, with their O-line being not great, they're seeing some very, very small improvements here and there. Great win against the 49ers. So we'll see how that goes going forward. I don't have a whole lot of confidence, but I got to move them up. That was a very respectable win in division. And I think Matthew Stafford, the team is still very talented overall. Injuries haven't hurt them too much just yet. We'll see how that goes over time with the Rams. But, I mean, they are still showing some signs of life that they are contending in the league. So I'm going to keep them at 11 for now. Again, it's a weird spot because there's a lot of teams around them that are not doing big movers. Top 10 is pretty solidified, but every other team are below the Rams right now are kind of in a weird spot where they either had a bad loss or they didn't have a good enough win to move them back in the conversation. Not top 10. Let's go ahead and talk about that. The Cowboys at 10. It's still the damn Cowboys. The roster's still good. CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott will get things together eventually. The defense is going to suffocate teams and burn out teams, not like nothing else. The Cowboys losing obviously hurts them a little bit. They're a top 10 team, but they are still consistent enough in their play that I think you can't argue that the Cowboys are too far out the top 10 if so. Again, if the Vikings and Cowboys, the Vikings are just a really good example because they're a team that's doing really damn well. That's kind of low. If the Cowboys and Vikings play, I would pick the Cowboys. This is kind of the threshold of, like, I don't doubt the top 10 teams from beating the Vikings right now. So I don't see the Vikings as a top 10 team. I could see them competing against the Rams, the Bucks, and the Seahawks, and they could probably beat 14 through 16. But again, I don't see them beating a top 10 team, or at least I wouldn't bet on it. Maybe the Packers I probably would bet on because Jordan Love's hurt. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Cowboys still, I think, are a very solid team, keeping them top 10. Steelers, say what you will about them. Their offense may not be impressive. Their defense is suffocating. They don't allow more than, basically, 13 points a game. And at the very least, the Steelers may not be able to get into the end zone. They're going to get into that field goal range every single fucking time. And the Steelers are going to win. Najee has been consistent. Justin Fields has been very suitable to getting the ball gradually down the field. We'll see how it continues as the league goes on. But they've won every game. Their defense has literally suffocated teams, keeping it very low scoring, and their offense has at least moved the ball. And gradually over time, especially in that tough division, or at least what we thought was going to be a tough division, the Steelers are gradually moving up, and so happens they were just in the right spot at the right time because they started the season basically 14-15 because they were a playoff contending team. And they've just won every game, and every team around them outside the top 10 has been losing. So, how do you not keep the Steelers in the top 10 conversation right now? So, moving forward. Texans moving down to, of course, we've now seen some weakness from the Texans. They have now shown that they are a very beatable team. Before, we've seen them basically like the Dolphins we did in the beginning of last year, of they were just always in the fight. They are always going to be producing a good offense, always producing a good defense. This is the first time we've seen that the Texans show some bit of weakness, and so that's why, of course, they moved down. You can't be an elite team without consistency and at least showcasing every game that you can win. This game was not a game they showcased they could win, so they moved down too. But I think they will continue to be good. It's a very unfortunate game in general. I'm going to go ahead and close out my camera too so y'all can actually see the entire thing as I talk about the top 7. Eagles, I don't even know what to say. But this is one of my worst takes, I guess, so far, is the Eagles would not be as good. And I don't think they're an amazing team, but I got to give them respect. They win games. They put up stats. They are looking good. Even without A.J. Brown there, the Eagles' offense is still clicking. The offensive line has recovered well without Jason Kelsey there. And defense, again, has been the defense for the Eagles in past years. So I can't really argue with it much there. Probably my most controversial pick, though, is the Packers at 6. Again, they were a top 8 team coming into the season in my mind because Jordan Love showcased he can move this offense. This defense is amazing, and they showcase they can beat teams in big crunch time situations, and they can compete against teams in crunch time situations. Coming in the season, they were one of the most hyped up rosters in my mind. Now, obviously, they stayed in that realm, and then they lost to the Eagles, so they went down a little bit. But now they consistently, again, produce with Malik Willis. Malik Willis is undefeated right now, and while he isn't the one producing it, he's at least leading an offense that is winning through the run game, through their defense, anything else. If Malik Willis is not heavily involved, we haven't really seen a game where he's been the one having to win the game, and Jordan Love could come back any minute now. This Packers team is looking like one of the better teams in the league based on their positioning. Now, granted, again, I think they're in a very squishy position, especially facing the Vikings this next week. But I think there's a good possibility that the Packers still say easily top 10 team because they have been producing even without their star quarterback. So it's really tough for me to place the Packers anywhere. But again, I think that they're looking better, at least than the Texans. Maybe you could argue the Eagles are better because the Eagles beat them, but I would also argue that was a very close game. It was overseas. There's a lot of things to take into consideration there. You got to keep the conversation with the Packers in general with this playoff contending team. Ravens at 5. Again, the Ravens are Ravens. They have seen a really bad start to the season, I'm not going to lie to you. But they have looked fine outside of their O-line. Lamar Jackson has been at least adapting to that. Their weapons have been really heavily utilized outside of the tight end position. They have been utilizing everybody on that offense. The defense is still very, very good. The Ravens still, again, coming this season, were a very, very highly tiered team. And while we haven't seen many results with the wins, we have seen at least the Ravens show flashes of what they can be doing. So I can't knock the Ravens out of top 5 just yet. However, it's not the greatest looking team I've ever seen in the world because I do not think the Ravens, I think this is where the tier starts with the top 5 teams. I think this is easily a top 5 team league right now. But the Ravens are very close out of that league, or out of that tier. I'll tell you a team that's not nearly out of that tier. That's the Bills. The Bills they have done everything right. They have done everything they could possibly do right. And honestly, you could probably argue that they're the best team, if not the second best team in the league. I'm not. If you came up to me and said my power ranking's wrong because the Bills aren't number 1 or number 2, I honestly would kind of understand that because we've seen mistakes from the Lions and the 49ers, and we'll talk about the Chiefs, but we have not seen a mistake from the Bills yet. They have been dominant and they've been killing people. The only reason I don't like to keep on moving up is for one, the 49ers and Lions were leagues above I shouldn't say leagues, but they were at least a league above the Bills. And we've seen one mistake from the 49ers and Lions, which puts them in the conversation of the Bills, or the Bills put themselves in the conversation of that team. Because again, remember how the Bills ended the season last year? They did not look like they were the most complete team ever. They made a lot of mistakes and they had a lot of holes to fill. And granted, they're showcasing they are filling those holes. But man, it's looking like a tough turnaround, or it's looking like a really good turnaround for the Bills. Now again, the Lions and the 49ers, I think their game plans are still very much intact. And the 49ers, despite injuries, have produced results. The Lions, despite maybe a dropped off loss against the Bucs, right? It was a very good team, a very well competed matchup. Outside of that, the Lions have been basically the Bills. So it's really tough for me to kind of analyze that. And the Chiefs, they have still won. They haven't made many mistakes. They just haven't looked great. Don't get me wrong, their run game is now really depleted. Their defense is looking a little bit weaker than it did last year. And if you took out Rashee Rice from that offense, how good does it really look in the receiving game? But the Chiefs are still the Chiefs. They won the Super Bowl last year. They won the Super Bowl the year before that. They get wins. They're 3-0. Their stats aren't awful. They don't look awful like they did kind of in their offense last year. So you guys still keep them at number 1. No matter, in my mind, the Chiefs are still number 1 in the power rankings. Until they lose, it's just going to be the conversation to continue. But again, the Bills are a tough one to rank right now because they're doing so damn well. And I hope to continue seeing that because I like seeing the Bills do well. And I think they're in a good prime position to pass the 49ers and Lions. But again, if the Lions and 49ers also produce results, I don't know what I can really do with the Bills otherwise. But they are still easily a top 5 team, or top 4 team. I think is very, very appropriate as well. I think this easily could be your AFC, NFC conference, the top 4. So that is my thoughts about the current state of the power rankings here. I know you're probably going to disagree with me. Everybody's going to clip this and be like, oh my gosh, this guy doesn't know ball. Remember, though, I make gradual changes over time. I do not overreact to things. This is like a gradual thing of we see a result, I move them up, I move them down based on that. I don't just, in a vacuum, say, oh my gosh, the Vikings are 3-0 and forget that they weren't a great team last year with Kirk Cousins out. So take that as you will. I will see y'all in the next video, guys. Take care.